Hi, how's everybody doing? Good? I'm Matt. This is Ajit. We're from Google. I'm going to talk to you today. I'm going to be talking particularly about Switch Access, which is an Android accessibility service for Android. And then Ajit's going to be showing you how Switch Access can combine with his newly created action blocks to accelerate interactions with the assistant. Yeah, let's get right into it.
Can you guys hear us?
Yeah, they can hear. So yeah, how this is going to go, I'm going to show you Switch Access really quick. I'm going to show you a quick demo of playing some music. Then we're going to go into action blocks. Ajit's going to introduce it in case you missed the talk this morning that was at 8 a.m. I know that's pretty early for some people. And then we're going to show demos and how action blocks can accelerate interacting with the assistant for users. Can we make it louder? I think the controls for the volume are in the back. Oh, it's up here?
Okay, Matt's gonna adjust. The output here is this the one, the big knob? One of the big knobs? Okay. All right. Is that better? Can you hear us better now? All right. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you.
All right. Oh yeah, that's much louder now. Oh my. Okay, so Switch Access. The goal of Switch Access is to provide an efficient, easy, and inexpensive solution to give users who rely on Switch devices complete control of an Android device. And we've bolded kind of the key terms here. It needs to be efficient, it needs to be easy, it needs to be cheap, and it needs to be complete. And so this is what we aim to do. For the demo I'm going to be giving, I've highlighted the settings we have here. Switch Access can work with as little as a single switch. In the demo, I'm going to be using 3 switches, kind of just to accelerate some things. The 3 switch configurations I'm going to have are a next action to select another, and like to go through the items on the screen. I'm going to have a select to be able to select the item I'm on. And I'm going to have a button that I can press to just go to the home screen on the app to kind of speed up getting around the device. The scanning method, there's 3 different scanning modes. One's a linear mode that just goes item by item. I'm going to be using a row column scanning where it first scans by rows. Then once you select a row, you can go into the column. And there's also a groups selection method that divides the screen into 2 different groups and users can select through groups. And then there's different behavior customizations you can do. You can do auto scan where that's really popular for a user with a single button. You can just press the switch to activate. The system will automatically scan through elements, and then the user just has to press the button again when it gets to the element they want. And then we do have low vision support for things like spoken feedback and then adding sound and vibration. So that's a really quick introduction to Switch Access. I'm going to show how it works. Okay, so here I have just an Android home screen, and with this one button I have configured, I can scan through the elements on the screen, and you'll see this highlight moving around. And from the context of a user, I want to play music in this demo. So I need to get to that play music item, and then I can select it. Sorry, I didn't want it to rotate. And so now once I'm in play music, I need to go ahead and find the row that has this menu item. I can browse to a station. Then I can find a station I want. Let's say I'm going to go with a classical station. Now I get to pick the station. And then at the very last, I have to actually play it. And so you'll notice that this is possible. So even if a user can only activate a single switch, this still allows them to play music. That's one of the goals of the item. Or in this case, we get to play an ad. But then, so what I'd like to show is through Ajit's work with action blocks, how we can accelerate this for users to make this a much kind of easier process.
So it is actually playing the music now. Yeah. All right, so it is playing the music now. You'll have to take our word for it. I yeah, I don't think you can hear this over the sound of everything else here, but I'm going to turn the music off. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Action Blocks, which is a new app that we're going to launch very soon. It isn't on the Play Store yet, but it's going to be on the Play Store really, really soon. Now, Action Blocks was not originally built as a Switch feature. It was originally conceived as this general purpose accelerator for a bunch of different things on Android. And the idea behind Action Blocks was really that with AAC users, for example, or with users that might have cognitive disabilities, users that might have difficulties just using the regular Android device because the UI is complicated, because the UI requires you to have familiarity with different apps. Is it possible to simplify that to make something that looks and feels a little bit like an AAC app? So the idea is that with Action Blocks, you can actually configure these large home screen buttons that you can trigger assistant commands with. So anything that the Google Assistant can do, whether it's making phone calls, whether it's sending text messages, whether it's playing media, whether it's home automation, all of these things you can configure these Action Blocks to do instead. And the advantage of setting up Action Blocks is that then the user doesn't have to necessarily go through the user interface of these specific apps. If they wanted to watch a video, for example, they wouldn't have to go into YouTube and then navigate the YouTube UI, potentially enter text, potentially make selections. They don't have to do all of that stuff. They can use an action block to directly kind of jump straight into the action. So we had designed this with users with various cognitive impairments in mind who would benefit from having a simplified UI and who would benefit from having a simplified flow and a consistent flow that they can then customize for their own needs. However, when we started doing research, to find out how effective Action Blocks was with different categories of disabilities, we actually found that there was a substantial improvement in the quality of user experience for switch access users. And that's actually pretty obvious because if you reduce the number of steps that it takes to perform a particular task, that's fewer clicks, less cognitive burden, overall a much better experience. And that's what Action Blocks was doing. So by reducing the number of steps that it takes to perform any action on your Android phone, it benefits users who have difficulties with just the number of steps because of cognitive reasons, and also the number of steps from a switch access accessibility reason. So that's sort of what the background is for Action Blocks. We decided to essentially focus on a small set of actions of daily living that we wanted to make Action Blocks work really well with. Action Blocks can work with any command that you can give to Assistant. So it can work with anything that you can tell, if you said, okay, Google, and then you followed that with anything, that same thing can be configured as an action block, that can be programmed as an action block. But in the context of both switch access users and users with cognitive disabilities, these were the 5 kind of big categories that we were trying to optimize for. So safety and getting help. So things like, sending a message to someone saying that you need help, calling 911, all of these different things. Personal organization, stuff that is related to looking at your agenda, setting a timer, stuff like that. Entertainment, watching videos on YouTube, listening to music. Communicating with friends and family, so starting a video chat or sending a message on Skype or on WhatsApp or texting someone, all of that stuff. And then home automation, so stuff like turning on your lights, turning up the temperature. So these are extremely general use cases, but these are incredibly powerful in terms of enabling activities of daily living, right? So these were some of the things that we were thinking about. And then with that, I'm going to show you a demo of how action blocks works. And just in order to give you, I think, a little bit of contrast to the demo that Matt showed you with switch access, we're going to try performing the same action, which is playing a piece of classical music. This time, without going through the app, without going through the play music app, without having to go through each step of that app, but rather using an action block instead to do the same thing. So I'm going to show you how action blocks work first, and then I'm going to show you how to set up these blocks right after. So this is the home screen. So we've set up this button as the home button. So if I tap that switch, it takes me to the first screen of the home of the launcher of the home screen for Android. So this is the home screen, right? And it's got these 3 really large buttons on it. So already this looks a little different from a traditional Android UI. You know, when you think about a traditional Android UI, you think about Android as a collection of apps. With action blocks, you're configuring your home screen as a collection of actions that you can directly activate. And now I'm going to use my switch. This is the switch that I've configured for Next. So I'm going to use this to navigate to one of these action blocks. So this is a linear scan, so it's going through each of these blocks. And then now it's on the block that says classical. And then I'm going to tap into that. And then I'm going to hit this switch. This is the switch that I'm going to use for selection. So when I hit that switch, this is what happens. It opens up the Google Assistant. It sends Google Assistant a request. And then Google Assistant automatically fulfills that request and starts playing music. So again, you'd have to take my word for the fact that music is playing. But you can see that it's playing up here in the notification. And it's playing some lovely classical music here. Actually, can you hear it? Yeah, it's too loud to hear, but it is classical music. And at the end of the demo, you can come and take a look at it. We also have it. We also have a demo of action blocks at the Google booth, which is right behind. So if you'd like to try it out for yourself, you can do that. And so, after listening to classical music for a while, if you want to stop it, you can do exactly the same thing. There's a button here that's configured with stop. And so I'm gonna again use linear scan to go into the stop button, and then I hit that, and then it stops the music. So did I hit the... Yeah, so I'm going to stop, and then I hit the select button, and then it pops up the assistant again, and then it stops the music. So the first thing that you notice is that it's incredibly accelerated. Matt showed you a demo of playing classical music through the Play Music app. We benchmarked this. That was about 20 scans, a little more than 20 scans. And that's because you just have to, the application interface was built for people that didn't use switches and retrofitted with switch access functionality. And that's true pretty much of every app in the Play Store today. With action blocks, it's far fewer. It's maybe 4 or 5 taps to get to the classical music action block. And then, one selection to be able to do all of those sequence of actions that actually starts the classical music that you want to listen to. So it's a significant reduction. So that's how action blocks work. I'm going to also now very quickly show you how to set up an action block, because that's the heart of this. This is configurable. Typically, this is something that a user would set up for themselves, or a caregiver would set up, like an SLP might set up, or a parent might set up. And then, as I mentioned before, action blocks can be set up to do anything that the Google Assistant can do. So I'm going to show you an example of that. This is the Action Blocks app. You can see it. It's the first app here. And then I'm going to tap that app to open it. So this is kind of the management interface for all of the blocks that are on this device. And it looks very much like an AAC app, and I think that was intentional. We were hoping to have a lot of the familiarity that an SLP might have with the AAC world sort of transfer over here into the Action Blocks world. And then there's a button here that says new block right at the bottom. So I'm going to tap that button. And then it gives me a bunch of these templates that I can use to quickly get started with creating an app. So, a video call, a phone call, a text message, playing a video, playing, music, setting a timer. And then there's more block templates down here. So opening an app, getting directions, all of this stuff. And then there's a button here that says create custom block, which you can use to create any block that does anything that the Google Assistant can do. So I'm going to set up a block now to get directions. So I'm going to hit that button there, and it says get directions home here from here by walking. And this is a template, right? So you can change this to anything. So I can say get directions to the airport, for example, right? And then I don't want to walk to the airport, so I'm going to remove that piece. And then once I've got that command, I can test this out. And we strongly encourage this for a caregiver to try this out to make sure it does the right thing before creating an action block for it. So there's a button here that says test this command. And when I hit that, it uses the Google Assistant again to open Google Maps and to have this particular action configured. We might have a problem with the internet, but let's assume that worked. So was the test successful? Yes. And then continue. You can now set up a picture for it. So this is an image that this is an image from the symbol set that we provide. So there's a bunch of different symbols here. And you can set up any of these symbols. For example, I can say, well, this one, for example. But you can also choose a photograph from your phone, or you can take a photograph. If you'd like to have a more concrete representation of that action block. So in this particular case, I'm going to go with this, and I'm going to say airport here, and then I'm going to save that block. And then when I save it, it gives me the option to add that to my home screen. And so I can either add it automatically, or I can drag this block out of here, and I can put it on, whichever of these home screens I'd like. So I can put it in one of these places. I can put it on, on this home screen. And once I put it on the home screen, I can resize this as well. So if it's a switch access user that wanted really one large button, I can make it as large as I want it to, right? So if I set up a button here to call mom, I can have one large button there with a photograph of mom, and then I can use switch access to enter that, and then I can hit my select switch, and that will call assistant, and that gives me directions to the airport. So that's how that's how action blocks works to accelerate these user journeys for people that need switches. It's useful for people that have cognitive impairments, also useful for people that have motor impairments that need switches. And as you can see, there is an initial setup, and that setup can be customized. But once this action block is set up, it reduces the number of steps that it takes for someone to actually get something done on their Android phone from several minutes down to 3 or 4 clicks. And then it's completing that action in one step instead of multiple steps. Yes? You might have to add a second step to certain actions. So for example, if you set up an action block to send a text message to someone, you will have to, so it will save you the trouble of typing in the text message and typing in who the recipient is and all of that stuff, but there's still a confirmation button that you'd have to tap. And so you'd still have to use switch access to be able to tap into that confirmation button. I can show you how that would work. I think we have let me go back to home, and then there's a pickup button here, and that button essentially sends a message to someone that says pick me up. And so if I select that, it's sending a text message to this person asking them to pick you up, but it doesn't send a text message right yet, right? Because it's an irreversible action. So you still have a confirmation button there, and so I'd have to use switch access to get into the assistant into this particular screen, and then I'd have to confirm. So it is, it is one extra step, but it still saves you all of the trouble of typing that message in, selecting the recipient, all of that stuff. So it's accelerating things. It's not necessarily making things one click or one tap, but it's making things substantially faster than they would be otherwise. Yes. Yes. Any switch that Android supports can be used to navigate this. Do you know if?
It depends a bit on the game controller, but anything that connects to Android and prevents itself as an input device, you should be able to use, I think, any modern PlayStation controller, any modern Xbox controller. There's lots of third-party Bluetooth controllers that other companies make. All of those should be configurable with switch access as control inputs for switch access. So in that context, it should work just fine. Yes. Question was, if somebody's an independent switch user, can they program it themselves? I don't see why not. They can go ahead and you can. So that's the swipe keyboard input, but you can use the keyboard with switch access to input text. It is gonna, like some of the other flows we've seen that aren't designed maybe with switch usage in mind, it's going to take a little bit more, but it's definitely configurable. And you can, with this switch control as well, you can reorder those icons on the home screen, you can enlarge them, you can move them around. That's all supported.
Just to add to that, the other thing that you can do is to specify these commands, and you can specify what these labels are with voice input. So you see that on this screen, there's the assistant command, there's a little microphone next to it. So if this is a person that is verbal or has the ability to configure this with speech, they're able to do that, and that's usually faster than using switch access to do this. Yes. What switches are we using?
So that's a great. I just have to shout out to PRC Saltillo. My switches failed, and they gave me 3 of theirs to use. So this is their new Arrow switch. That's a wireless Bluetooth switch, and just two other switches that hook into it. So I have the 3 switch set up. And so yeah, if you're interested, I'll have them here. There's a sheet of information about them, and they're just kind of they're like the directly middle of the exhibit hall too. Yes. Oh, is Action Blocks out now? Not presently. I was gonna say, I'll give it to
Yeah, action blocks. Yeah, it's not the answer maybe that you want to hear, but action blocks is we're in the final stages of getting it on the Play Store. We have a sign-up sheet at the Google booth for people that would like to test it out right now. So it's going to be available really soon for us to give out to beta testers, for us to give out to people that would like to try this out with their population that they're serving, and then give us feedback. And then we're hoping to launch it really soon after that. So, so please come to our booth, sign up. We're also doing studies tomorrow. So if any of you would like to try this out at the conference and give us feedback, we would love to have you join us to do that tomorrow. So that's also something that we're accepting signups at the Google booth. So.
And we're over time, and I apologize for that. And so we'll be at the booth pretty much the rest of the conference. Thank you so much for coming.